Hi everyone, welcome back to Math Specs. My name is Stephanie and today we're going to continue with our discussion of rules of addition. So today we're going to talk about how to add two numbers with the same sign and how to add two numbers with opposite signs. So when we add two numbers with the same sign, we're going to add their absolute value. So this right here is going to be our approach. So we want to know, how are we going to tackle our problem? So this is our approach. So we're going to add their absolute values and attach their common sign. So if you haven't watched our absolute value lecture, now would be a really great time for you to go back and maybe watch some of the practice sets so you can get familiarized with how we take absolute values. Let's kind of do a quick example. If we're going to add two numbers with the same sign, I always think of negative numbers. So -6 plus -3. So according to our approach, they have the same sign, so I'm going to take their absolute values. So remember, the absolute values of negative numbers are going to be their opposites. So this would be something like minus -6, so our absolute value is going to be +6. So like I said, it would be a really good time for you to rewatch the lecture and get all caught up. So the absolute value of -3 is also going to be taken in this manner, the opposite of it, so it's going to be +3. So now I'm going to add these absolute values. So I'm going to go over here and add 6 plus 3, and that's going to give me 9. And now I'm going to attach their common sign. So here I see that they're both negative, so I'm going to add a negative sign to this. So this is going to be -9, okay? And that's going to be our final answer. Okay, so when we add two numbers with opposite signs, this is also our approach. We're going to subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger one, and we're going to attach the sign of the number with the larger absolute value. So I'm going to give you a quick example here. I'm going to have -8 plus 3. Okay, so our approach tells us that we're going to have to take their absolute values and subtract them. So I'm going to take the absolute value of -8, that will be the opposite of -8, which is going to be +8. And I'm going to take the absolute value of +3, and that's 3. So now I'm going to subtract these two. So I'm going to subtract 8 minus 3, and that's going to give me 5. So my final answer is going to be 5, but I need to attach the sign of the number with the larger absolute value. And out of -8 and 3, which one has the larger absolute value? Which one is bigger, 8 or 3? 8 is bigger, but that number that we took the absolute value of is negative. So I'm going to write a negative sign right there. So this would be our final answer, -5. So -8 plus 3 is going to give us -5. Don't worry, we're going to do more examples in the next slide, but I definitely encourage you to rewatch the absolute value lecture or maybe look at one of the practice sets so that we can get through the absolute value portions without any bumps, okay? So let's go ahead to this example. So we're asked to add -4 and -5. So first I'm going to write this out, -4 plus -5, okay? So our approach is that we have to notice that they have what kind of sign do they have? Is it the same? Is it the opposite? We know that it's the same because -4 is negative. We have the minus sign in front, and 5 is also negative because we also have a minus sign in front. So they have the same sign. Okay? So that means that we're going to add their absolute values. So I'm going to take the absolute value of -4, and that's going to be +4. And the absolute value of -5 is going to be +5. I'm going to add these two, so 4 plus 5 is going to give me 9. Okay. But we are asked to attach their common sign. So what is their common sign? They share a negative sign, right? So this one is negative and this one is negative. So my final answer is going to be negative 9. So negative 9. Okay, so this would be our final answer here, negative 9. So let's go ahead and continue to the next example. Here we're asked to add positive 3 and negative 9. So I'm going to write this out. So 3 plus negative 9. Okay, and for our approach, what do you notice about their signs? 3 is positive and 9 is negative because we have the minus sign in front. So 3 and negative 9 have opposite signs. Okay, so they have opposite signs. So what does that mean? That means we're going to subtract their absolute values. So I'm going to take the absolute value of 3 and the absolute value of negative 9. So the absolute value of 3 is 3, and the absolute value of negative 9 is going to be 9. And I'm going to subtract these two. So 9 minus 3 is going to give me 6. So I know that my answer is going to be 6, but what is the sign of 6? Well, to find the sign, we're going to attach the common sign of the number with the larger absolute value. So which out of these has the larger absolute value, 3 or negative 9? It's going to be negative 9. So that means that 6 is going to be negative. So our answer was 6, but the sign is going to be negative. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue to the next example. So here we're asked to add these using the rules of addition that we just discussed. I would like for you to try these on your own and use all of the rules that we just learned, and also use your knowledge of absolute values to be able to solve these. So remember the approach. I want you to think about what kind of sign they have, and then take the absolute values and do what you need to do. Here as well, what kind of sign do they have? Is it the same? Is it the opposite? So is it the same or is it the opposite? And this will really guide you to what you need to do next, okay? And of course, the answers are always in the description box for your understanding. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, okay? So good luck, and yes, you can. Yes, you can. That is the mantra of this channel. So let's continue. And now we're going to discuss the properties of addition, okay? So the first one is the closure property, and this basically tells us that the sum of any two real numbers is a unique number. So let's say that we add 3 plus 4, so 7 is the unique number to this sum, okay? Or let's say 2 plus 1 is 3, okay? The second property that we have is the commutative property, and it tells us that the order does not matter, that the order in which two numbers are added does not change the sum. So let's say I took something like 9 plus 2, right? This is going to give me the same answer if I added 2 plus 9, right? Or let's see, 1 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 1. So it doesn't matter. 1 plus 3 is equal to 3 plus 1, or 9 plus 2 is equal to 2 plus 9. They give us both the same answer. Okay. So let's continue. We also have the associative property, which tells us that the way in which three numbers are grouped when adding does not change the sum. So let's give you an example. So if I have 3 plus 1 plus 2 and 3 plus 1 plus 2, if I decide to add 3 plus 1 first here in this group and then add 2, it's going to be the same thing if we decided to instead add 1 plus 2 first and then add 3. Because what would this be? So if I added 3 plus 1 first, if I group these, I would get 4. And then if I brought down the 2, 4 plus 2 would give me 6. And on the right-hand side, if I decided to add 1 plus 2 first, I'd bring down my 3, plus, and then 1 plus 2 is going to give me 3. And what is 3 plus 3? That's also going to give me 6. So I would really encourage you to maybe try out different examples. This is also going to be really helpful when we start working with negative numbers. Well, we are working with negative numbers, but say, for example, we have 3 plus negative 1 plus 2. So I would encourage you to do this, to group these, and then group these on the side. So 3 plus negative 1 is going to give me positive 2. Then I bring down my 2 here, and 2 plus 2 is going to give me 4. And on the right-hand side, I add negative 1 plus 2, and this is going to give me positive 1. 3 plus 1 gives me 4. So you see, we can also do this with negative numbers. Our next property is called the identity property, and it tells us that the sum of a number and 0 is that same number. So here we have a plus 0 is equal to a. So if I had 4 plus 0, that's also going to give me 4. So it remains the same. Or if I had negative 6 plus 0, that gives me negative 6. 0 plus 1/2 is still a half. Negative 1/4 plus 0 is negative a fourth. 0.5 plus 0 is 0.5. So you understand, right? Okay. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer, of course. And then our last property is the inverse property. And it tells us that the sum of a number and its opposite is 0. So this would be a good time for you to review when we discussed opposites. And they are basically two numbers that have different signs and they are on different sides of 0. So here we have a plus negative a is equal to 0, but let's use some actual numbers. So we have 3 plus negative 3. This would give us 0. You can also think of this using our algebra tiles. We would have 3 blue algebra tiles for the positive 3 and 3 red negative tiles for negative 3. And when we group all of those together, we would have positives at the top right here, and then we would have negatives down here. And when we group all these together, we would have nothing left over. So our answer would be 0. So there's many different ways that you can think about this, or you can think about it also as well as on the number line. If we were to have, if we're going to add a negative number, so we would be at positive 3. And we would be adding a negative number, so we would be moving to the left. So, oh no, positive 1. So we would be moving 3 spaces to the left. So we would go 1, 2, 3, and we would land at 0. So that there are many different ways to think of addition like we talked about. So let's go ahead and continue. So we're going to use our properties of addition to find our result here. So for the first one, we have negative 8 plus 10 plus 8. And here I'm going to be, you can tackle this in many different ways. You can add these two together, or you can add 10 and positive 8 together first, and then do the subtraction. I'm actually going to add 10 plus 8 first because I like the positive numbers. So 10 plus 8 is going to give me positive 18. And I drop down my negative 8. And now I add negative 8 plus 18, and this is going to give me positive 10. Or what you could do is if you have negative 8 plus 10 plus 8, I notice that negative 8 and positive 8 are opposites. So I can add those two together because I know that they are going to sum to something very special. So -8 plus 8 are actually will actually give me 0 because these numbers are opposites. So I have 0, I bring down my positive 10, and what is 0 plus 10? That's just going to be 10. That's also one of our properties, okay? And we get the same answer. So there's different ways that you can approach these problems using the properties that we just learned. Okay, in our next example, we have -5 plus 1 plus 2. And of course, you can add -5 plus 1 first, or you can add +1 and +2 first, which I would like to do. So 1 plus 2 is going to give me 3, +3, and I bring down my -5. And here I have -5 plus 3, and this is going to give me -2. Okay. And I would get the same answer if I were to go the other way, if I were to group +1 and -5. So I would add -5 plus 1. This would give me -4. I'd bring down my +2. Then I would add these two together, and this would give me -2. Okay, so we see we can group these three numbers in different ways, and we would still get the same answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. And this is actually a really good opportunity for you to try this on your own. To look at all of our properties, and here are our properties on the right hand side. So these are the names, and these are some examples. So you would just basically draw a line to the property. So this is the example, and this would be the property that would explain that, or yeah, like this would be the example and this would be the property it's referring to. Okay, so this would be a really good opportunity for you to look at the notes and just kind of match these up. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue, and that is the conclusion of this lecture. Next time we will begin our practice set where we will get more practice adding real numbers using the number line, as well as using our rules of addition to find the sum. So I hope that you can join me for that. Thank you so much for your time and attention today, and I hope that you enjoyed the rest of your day.